Please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
Well, the Pinarayi Vijayan-led Kerala government has decided to reduce the value-added tax on petrol and diesel by 1.6% with effect from the 1st of June, that's Friday. This could lead to a cut of ₹1 per litre. Remember, prices vary from state to state depending on the local sales tax or VAT. After the cut, the effective VAT rate on petrol and diesel in Kerala would be 29.8%. The Finance Minister of Kerala, Thomas Isaac, joins us now. Mr. Isaac, the state of Kerala, the first off the block in cutting the VAT rate to bring down the prices of both petrol and diesel to offer some relief to consumers. You're pretty much now throwing an open challenge to the centre.
Exactly. We never raised our tax rate. It was the Modi government that increased the excise duty on petrol by more than 200% and on diesel more than 300%. Now, at that time, the crude oil prices were declining, and therefore nobody, there was the kind of protest against the increase of the tax rates. But now the crude oil prices are rising. Everybody expects the central government to do the reverse, calibrate the tax rates down so that the prices don't increase. Instead, they're allowing the companies to raise the prices. And therefore, we have been telling them, do this, don't do this, don't do this. But what's the point in telling this government? Therefore, we have decided to precipitate things by unilaterally saying no. We don't want the additional tax revenue from the price increase. Therefore, we have calculated the price increase of petrol and diesel from 1st of April to this date. And then adjusted our tax rate downwards, 1.69% for the petrol and 1.75% for the diesel, so that the prices will come down by ₹1.
Yes. Mr. Isaac, I have a few specific questions for you, sir. You know, VAT is ad valorem, sir. So every time crude prices increase, state governments like yours stand to benefit. Now, one discussion that's currently underway is that should VAT that states impose also now move to becoming specific, as is the case with the excise that the centre charges. I want your comment on that, because this, we understand, is something that is under discussion.
No, it is not under discussion anywhere, because nobody can discuss it. Only us, we can discuss it. Sales tax is fully within our purview.
Yes, but would you be open to the idea of moving to a specific VAT, sir?
No, we are not going to negotiate these things as separate. First point to be negotiated and acted upon is, here is a central government who, without any remorse, has increased the tax rate more than double. And then preaching things of behavior to others. No. If you are serious about controlling the price of petrol and diesel, first roll back the increase in that tax rate that you infected. Then we'll sit down and discuss whether to go fixed charge or ad valorem.
So your message is... Your message to the centre is don't preach but act. Let me ask you, sir, do you have room to cut the VAT even further if we do continue to see global crude prices move higher, even though they've been declining over the last few days? But to provide more relief, do you have the elbow room to bring down your VAT rate even further? And also, if I could ask you, in terms of how much has accrued to you as a state government when we've seen the ad valorem benefit, what has been the revenue implication of that, and what is the revenue implication of this move?
See, suppose we had decided to collect the tax on the price increase of the petrol and diesel, that marginal increase in the price that taxed upon, at the present rate, we would have gained something like 500 crores. So we are giving up that 500 crores. So that is the, assuming the prices don't rise anymore, we are giving up 500 crores of potential revenue. Now your question is...
But you've made significantly more, sir. you've made significantly more on account of the fact that we've seen crude prices move up so significantly.
Who asked them to raise the price in the first place? We are telling them every day, you reduce the taxes which you raise, and we promise we won't tweak our rates high. That's what our promise. So you ask me
that point I get. I'm not arguing. I'm not arguing about that. I'm merely pointing out that you have also benefited from the fact that the duty structure is ad valorem, the state VAT is ad valorem, and all states like yours have also benefited on account of the higher global prices. So that has had positive revenue implications for your state.
My response would be to, one, I have already stated, we don't want this. Let them reduce the rate of tax and prices will come down, and we make a solemn promise. We won't raise the rate to keep up our revenue. Two, now since they are not listening to us, well, I take initiative to give up the additional revenue that we accrue because of our ad valorem rate structure. Now, if you are asking me, are you going to do it in future? Well, I hope there will be enough protest in India that our action will also incentivize such social protest movement so that the central government will the tax hike and we won't have to reduce our rates further.
All right. Okay, Mr. Isaac, my final question to you, sir. A lot of central government leaders are now talking about the possibility of bringing the GST, bringing petroleum under the ambit of the GST. We are given to understand that this might even be an issue for discussion at the next meeting of the GST Council. What will your position as a state be on bringing petroleum under the GST?
Now, first, these are just totally dishonest talk. When simple, straightforward course of action is before you, just roll back the price increase, the tax increase you made. Why go into discussion of GST, decision to be made in the GST Council, consensus of this 30-plus governments, state governments, and so on. Now these are all ways of postponing the inevitable action.
So you don't have much hope then? So from what I can understand, you don't have much hope on moving forward on bringing petroleum under the GST?
No, I don't think central government is willing to give up this money because that will affect the fiscal deficit in a condition of rupees sliding down. You don't want to give an impression that the fiscal deficit may go up. Therefore, central government will not do it till the 3 states elections come up. Then they will perhaps bring a surprise from the nation.
Okay.
So,
all right,
if you are asking me straightforward whether I will be positive to the GST, I'm saying, okay, take it to the GST, but compensate us. That's the law of GST.
Okay,
if your revenues don't go by 15%, you have to compensate the state. Let central government make their promise.
Yes, compensate the states. All right.
Yeah.
Okay, that's your point of view. Thomas Isaac, appreciate you joining us here, the Finance Minister of Kerala, also the member of the GST Council representing his state there on the government's decision to bring down the VAT rate and provide a rupee relief both on petrol and diesel per litre in the state. Now, to take the GST conversation forward, we're joined by Prateek Jain of PwC and tax expert Rohan Shah. Gentlemen, appreciate you joining us here. Prateek, let me start by asking you, we've been hearing this from the likes of Nitin Gadkari, Dharmendra Pradhan, the oil minister, Piyush Goyal, that the centre is keen that the issue of petroleum gets taken up at the level of the GST Council and we move forward on bringing petroleum under the GST ambit. We just heard from the Finance Minister of Kerala. He's not particularly optimistic of any forward movement at all. Do you believe that while it might be an agenda item, it might even get discussed, it's likely to be taken any further currently?
Looks difficult. I think the process of this petroleum products bringing in a GST is to start with ATF and natural gas, and then try and bring in other passenger fuels like petrol and diesel, etc. I think that is going to take a lot longer, to my mind, than ATF and natural gas. I mean, of course, there is a lot of politics behind it. But if you look at the economics, clearly there is very good reason for bringing in these products under GST. Of course, there is a cascading that you will prevent, and that you will bring the larger part of the economy under GST. But also, once it comes under GST, then you can't change the rates very frequently. And unfortunately, what's happening today is that rate has become a tool in the hands of the government to increase or decrease at any point in time, right? I mean, if you look at ATF, for example, most of the follower airlines do not come to India to fuel. They do it outside India, right? The reason is a huge amount of taxes that you pay on ATF. And before GST came in, the excise duty which I paid as a cargo airline, that was available to me as an offset, which has completely, which is not there now. So my cost has increased by 4 to 5%. If I'm talking about a cargo airline, for passenger anyway, it was not available earlier. So I think there is a very good reason for us to consider bringing in petroleum products. It has to be gradual. First ATF and natural gas, and then maybe other passenger fuels. Yes, yes.
Okay.
But I'm not too hopeful that
Mr. Shah,
it will come very soon.
You're not too hopeful that it will come soon. What we are given to understand is that there seems to be at least some degree of forward movement on trying to bring the Civil Aviation Ministry's proposal of bringing ATF under the GST with a tax rate of 12%. Mr. Shah, do you believe that while petroleum may still be a long way off, we could, as Pratik pointed out, see some effort to move forward on ATF and natural gas?
In excluding petroleum and excluding a few other things, I think we created what was a deviation from a global perspective of a GST, because we are one of the few who have taken various products into GST but have left out a few, like the whole petroleum segment. The second situation it creates is that the fact that every rupee of tax paid should convert into a credit is also not addressed, because this now becomes tax paid which is non-virtuous, you don't get a credit. So these are anomalies, and in any case you have to sort of correct them. There is then the imperative of what is happening with global petroleum prices, and the imperative that we are obviously in proximity to an election, even though it's a sort of year away. Given all of these, I believe that what is being said by various central ministers will probably for the first time test the principle where the GST Council may have to put to vote on an issue on which they are not unanimous. I think they have till now, and rightly, prided themselves on saying everything has been consensual and unanimous, even if debated.
Consensus, yes.
But I believe for the first time, you might see a situation where this actually goes to a vote. And, there is reason for it to be voted. So, to my mind...
but as the Kerala finance minister was explaining to us, this might be central leaders talking about this, but state finance ministers and state governments may feel differently about this. And then comes the issue of compensation as well. So we may not get to a point of this matter being even taken to a vote just yet. We don't know. But what we are given to understand is that it might be taken up in some form or fashion by the GST Council in its next meeting. But gentlemen, speaking of anomalies, I want to get both of you to comment on one anomaly we understand is likely to be corrected, and that is the levy of GST at duty-free shops at airports across India. Mr. Shah, let me start by asking you, I mean, this was a red herring to start with. The fact that it is likely to be corrected would be good news.
Definitely good news, because it never ought to have been taxed. A duty-free zone is seen as a special zone economically, which globally is segmented from the local economy and therefore not taxed. The point it, of course, raises is the AR mechanism is throwing up a lot of anomalies. Issues like the one you just mentioned, and those need correction. I think there's an anomaly on taxation in solar. There is an anomaly now in, they want to tax liquidated damages on the concept that liquidated damages is a consideration for forbearance, which is contrary to every perception of contract law globally. So in this instance, I think the correction is necessary. But the disturbing trend is that bad AARs are creating the need for more such correction.
Right, right. Okay, Pratik, let me put that question to you. One anomaly which is likely to be corrected is the duty-free anomaly, but as Mr. Shah was pointing out, there are several others now, you know, and an issue that we discussed previously on the show as well. What happens if you buy something and you get something free on that? Is the GST going to be levied on that as well? So in terms of the anomalies that the GST Council must address when it next meets, what would you add to that list?
No, I mean, many of them. I think, but the structural front, which Rohan makes a point, that different advance rulings, and we have 60 odd advance rulings, or maybe a little more, which have come, and almost every advance ruling is negative. They have not accepted the contention of the industry. And also some of these things like freebies, etc., that you talked about. It seems that you know the authorities who are either framing the law or who are administrating it are not looking at you know, aligning the tax laws with the business. And that's a problem. And you have to look at, for example, duty free. It has always been exempt, right? It's not the first time that we are looking at this issue. Internationally, as Rohan says, it's been exempt. There's no reason for India to make a departure. If you just keep issuing these advance rulings without any sort of application of mind, it becomes very difficult, and then you have a possibility that different states will look at different, you know, different positions. So obviously, you know, solar issue, you know, whether it should be 5% or 18% is another one. Restaurants, we have been debating about 5 and 18 for a long time. There are a lot of legislative changes which they are bringing, you know, planning also. My concern is on this is that any legislative change that you bring in will become prospective. So you will still look at a possibility of a litigation from July 1 till the time that that amendment takes place. And therefore, amongst the amendment that they need to do, they also need to empower the GST Council to come up with a retrospective change in law from 1st of July 17, because a lot of these anomalies have to be corrected right from the first day and not now.
Diary. Now, ICICI Bank has decided to institute an inquiry to examine whistleblower complaint against its MD and CEO Chanda Kochhar. Ritu Singh joins us with more details. Ritu, what was the nature of those allegations by the whistleblower, and what does the inquiry intend to do now?
That's right. The board of ICICI Bank has instituted an independent probe to look into a whistleblower's charges against the bank's MD and CEO Chanda Kochhar. Now, this is in reference with the letter that was written by an ICICI Bank shareholder, Arvind Gupta, in 2015, alleging that the bank CEO Chanda Kochhar had given out loans to a Videocon group as a quid pro quo for his investment in her husband's firm. Now, the board today said that the audit committee will be appointing a head of inquiry and together will be looking into allegations of violation of code of conduct by the bank CEO, as also allegations of quid pro quo in her dealing with some of the customers. In fact, they further said that the inquiry will be making use of forensics and email reviews if required. This is important also because it comes just 4 days after SEBI as well issued a show cause notice to the bank and its CEO Chanda Kochhar for alleged violation of disclosure requirements under the securities law, in this case which involves the Videocon group and New Power Renewables, which is the company that is run by Chanda Kochhar's husband, Deepak Kochhar.
Right, many thanks, Ritu, for joining us with all the details from there. And a day after the CBI booked AirAsia Group CEO Tony Fernandes and others for alleged violation of norms in getting international flying licenses, we do an in-depth analysis of the FIR filed against AirAsia by the CBI. Now, the charges mention both the UPA2 as well as the present NDA tenure. Utkarsh Chaturvedi joins us now with the latest to break that down. Utkarsh, so what are the charges pertaining to towards the end of the term of the UPA2 and the beginning of the term of the NDA tenure?
So if you look at the timeline of this crime as per the FIR, that stands from 2013 to 2016. So as you said, both the governments, whether it be UPA or NDA, there has been crimes allegedly committed in both the governments now. So what we have done is, sticking to the FIR, what we have done is, we have broken down which are the allegations put by CBI during the UPA regime and which are the allegations put by CBI in the NDA regime. Let's start with the UPA regime first. Now, the secret note which is being spoken about was sent to Cabinet on 27th of February 2014 to amend the existing 520 rules. This happened during the UPA regime. Also, in the R. Venkatraman was involved in lobbying through non-transparent means was something which is being highlighted during the year 2013-14. Aviation Ministry went ahead and sent clarifications to Cabinet on 5th March 2014. And finally, what the CBI FIR says is that this proposal was not being able to pass because the election dates were announced. Now, in this period of time, who was the Aviation Minister? Ajit Singh was the Aviation Minister. And speaking about the Aviation Secretary, Ashok Lavasa was handling the tenure from 2013 to 2014. Now let's come to the NDA regime. Now the first instance of corruption happened in December, as soon as NDA government took charge that year itself, and that says that Sunil Kapoor and Bolingam handed over 50 lakh rupees cash to one Mr. Sriram. Now that's very loosely written, one Mr. Sriram in FIR, because they've not been able to really identify who is this Mr. Sriram. Also, it says that the cash given by Bolingam is to facilitate the removal of the 520 route. But in the December of 2014, or maybe in the next year as well, this didn't happen. Then the FIR directly jumps to the year 2015-16, where an amount of 12.28 crores is given to HNR Trading for a sham contract. And Deepak Talwar also been handed over somewhere around 70 lakh rupees for a presentation he made on how to really go about the plan of bribing government officials. Now, in this period, what happened is that you had a lot of aviation secretaries, but one aviation minister. The aviation minister at that point of time was Ashok Gajapati Raju, but the aviation secretaries during 15 to 16 were three people. This was a period when a quick succession happened: Ashok Lavasa, V. Somasundaram, and R.N. Chaube. But a lot of questions are still unanswered in this FIR, Arif, and we will try and get you more answers on these unanswered questions which are available in the CBI FIR.
Right, Utkarsh. Many thanks for that comprehensive breakdown. So there you have it, the details coming in regarding that AirAsia story. And we'll continue to get you more details as and when there are more developments pertaining to that. But on to a CNBC TV18 exclusive now, where the Power Ministry has written a letter to the Coal Ministry seeking additional coal supply. The Power Ministry saying that 50,000 megawatt capacity has been affected because of the shortage. Anshu Sharma joins us now with all the details from there. Anshu, so the Coal Ministry has spoken to you about the letter. Can you take us through all the details?
Right, we understand from sources that Power Ministry officials have reached out to the Coal Ministry and has sought adequate supply of coal, and have said that about 50,000 megawatt of capacity out of 194 gigawatt of coal-based power plants are hit by coal shortage. And they have also said that PLF, or plant load factor, for the public sector power plants are at 63% and 57% for the independent power plants which are based on coal. The ministry has also said that Coal India and Singareni coalfields have never paid any penalty on less supply of coal, and there should be some rationalization in terms of penalties, and have suggested that 20% of the coal cost should be penalized to the coal companies if they supply below 75% of annual contracted quantity, and above 100% incentives should be in the same order of 20%. Currently, there are many slabs beginning from 80% to 100%. If company supplies below 80%, there are penalty at different levels. In a detailed statement from Coal Ministry to CNBC TV18, Coal Ministry has said that up till now, till May 28, 77 million ton of coal has been supplied only to the power sector, which is an increase during the same period last year at 14%. And they have also said that rationalization of penalty under fuel supply agreement is a contract which will have to be binding between the two parties. So we'll have to see how soon this coal supply crunch will end, as monsoon is coming soon and there will be hit on production of coal. Back to you.
Right, Anshu, many thanks for bringing us up to speed with all the developments from there. And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of Reporter's Diary. Many thanks for joining us. But do stay tuned to CNBC TV18. Coming up next is a special conversation with Indian Hotel CEO Puneet Chhatwal on CNBC TV18 Power Talk.